Woo, woo! Welcome y'all to another edition. Y'all, I'm so excited. I already started pre-gaming. The fight of the decade, of the century, and one of the biggest fights in boxing history. And of course, as of now, the biggest money-making fight in boxing history. Before I get too excited, y'all, welcome to another edition of This Day in Boxing History. We love boxing. What day is it? Of course, May 2nd. All right, now let's start it off. Let's go ahead and start it off. All right, May 2nd, 1904. Stanley Ketchel KOs Kid Tracy in Butte, Montana. And this is also Stanley Ketchel's pro debut, meaning this is his first recorded or official bout. Now, these old school photos trip me out, y'all. Look at the way, what a lot of them, if you notice, they have, I want to call it awkward, but they have unique postures. You know, their biceps and forearms are kind of turned up, and their fists are turned up, and it looks like it's more of a punch, shoot, underhook type of technique that they have. Because, you know, we used to do that for grappling, but at the end of the day, we know that these dudes were business, had business acumen. They were skilled, they were tough, and, you know, according, and just by looking at their stances, they had reasons for their madness. By the way, if y'all ever seen a fight, before the 20th century, you know, a pro fight that was in the 1800s, it's nothing like what you think it is. It's actually a very skill-induced match. It's not that much wildness, if any wildness. A lot of posturing, a lot of angling, a lot of kind of sizing your opponent up. The skill level is actually very high. You'd be surprised. And to my surprise, the few that I've seen, to be honest with you, I saw one a few weeks back, and that's probably the second or third one that I've actually seen. They punched way less. Now, of course, you have exceptions to the rule like Jack Dempsey and Kid Chocolate, but for the most part, these old heads were calculated fighters. So watch your damn mouth before you come out here and talk trash about these prior greats. Right. Now, about Stanley Ketchel, which his birth name is Stanislaw Kajczul, something like that. The brother's Polish. He was born in 1886, and he passed away at a very young age in 1910. But he's better known as Stanley Ketchel. All right, and he's one of the greatest middleweight world champions in boxing history. And that's another thing. You know, I got some Polish friends. I have three or four Polish friends that I had in college. And from my short experiences with them, they were about that life. Two of them were sensational athletes. One was a bodybuilder, and the other one was a world level tennis player. You know, and shoot, they were tough, man. They were hell. They always had strong drink on them from Poland. They knew how to party, and to my surprise, they had my back in a lot of situations. All right, now back to Ketchel. Stanley Ketchel was nicknamed the Michigan Assassin. Great day, y'all. I'm already tipsy. I don't know if I already said, but Stanley Ketchel knocked out Kid Tracy on this day in boxing history in 1904 in the first round. But check this out. It's an interesting story about Ketchel. He avoided school, so instead of going to school, he joined the gang. Street kids, you know. Maybe they don't talk about his parents or anything. He got into a lot of fist fights, a lot of, you know, devilishment, a lot of wildness stuff young boys do, especially without guidance. And then at 12 years old, for whatever reasons, he ran away from home.
Hit me, you sucker.
Then he became sort of like a boxcar children, a latch and key chap or something. He was, you know, going from town to town, doing his thing. He took on odd jobs, busting tables, bellhop. Then he became a bouncer. And this led to him fighting and getting to, you know, scraps in the sand, you know, baddest man at the sand in my hand type of brawls. All right. And then we started fighting folks and other people around town as a bouncer. At the age of 16, he decided to go pro. A young whippersnapper, Stanley Ketchel, started having backroom brawls at the age of 16, where he was getting paid anywhere from $5 to $20. Now, this was in, that sounds like a lot to me. Now, shoot, the way I'm living, but in 1902 and 1903, $5 and $20. If y'all know anything about history, and plus the dollar was still real money, was still backed by gold then. And you hear your grandparents talk about how you can get a nickel and buy a loaf of bread back in, well, your great grandparents, or depending on how old you are. Your grandparents talking about how they had a nickel, they could buy a whole chocolate bar, a whole basket of fruit, and this joker was getting $5 to $20 just to fight in back rooms. But anyway, between 1903 and 1906, Stanley Ketchel only lost 2 times. And then after that, he moved to California, the land of dreams, the land of weed. All right. Now, Stanley Ketchel was one of the many fighters in history that's known for taking on heavier competition. All right, and it says here that he took on dudes that sometimes outweighed him by 30 pounds or more. So, I mean, it's nothing special, especially during this time. I mean, Joe Gans did that, Sam Langford, Barbados Joe, a whole host of fighters did that. Now, his first 41 bouts was in Montana, and his record was 36 wins, 2 losses, and 3 draws. And it also shows that he had 32-round fights, 20-round fights, 22-round fights. And my thinking, basically, in a lot of these situations, Cass was just fighting until there was a truce or a tie type of situation. They were just fighting until the bar or the venue got empty, or until people got tired and left. Or they were just fighting until somebody literally passed out, quit, or was knocked the hell out. Now in 1908, in February, Ketchel ran into a dude that was recognized as the middleweight world champion. All right, a dude named Mike Twin Sullivan, and he knocked him out in the first round. Easy work, right? Easy work. Knocked him out in the first round, and then he started calling himself the world middleweight champion because Mike Twin Sullivan, whether it was true or not, I couldn't get the facts, was recognized as some type of middleweight champion. After that fight, he was either crowned the American or world champion. I'm not too sure on which one is the factual case. All right. Now, about Ketchel's famous fight with the legendary Jack Johnson, the Giant. One caption reads, in the 12th round, Ketchel knocks down the Giant Jack Johnson with a sharp right hand. Whop! This fight, being called the Battle of David and Goliath, did not end like so. Jack Johnson got up immediately and popped him with an uppercut. Kaplow! Now here's another in-depth side note about the fight. It was rumored that Ketchel and Johnson, when they agreed to fight, agreed to take the fight to full 20 rounds. Ketchel would allow Johnson to win in the 20th. The reason for this was each man was interested in making as much money off the fight as possible. A 20-round fight would guarantee boxing fans would pay to go to local theaters to watch the replay of the fight. When Johnson deviated from the alleged plan of no blood shown, no blood be drawn, Ketchel, already bloodied, knocked Johnson down with the right hand, and that was in the 12th round. Afterwards, Ketchel faced the wrath of Jack Johnson. It was knocked out with a blow to the mouth. Ketchel did not wake up for many minutes, and some of his teeth that from the knockout blow was loose, and some were embedded. The word they're using right here is embedded in Johnson's glove. So basically, they both kind of, steered away from the script. Ketchel knocked Jack Johnson down. Jack Johnson said, all right, then we're going to go like that. We're going to go all out, and got up and knocked his behind out.
Hit me, hit me, hit me, hit me, hit me, you sucker.
Now, here's another interesting thing about Stanley Ketchel. He only had a 7-year pro career. And as we can see, he did a lot of work. He did excellent work. But I think people always have this nostalgia and extra love for the gone too soon, for the young prodigies that, that for whatever reasons while living that leave us early. Because the dude passed away, Stanley Ketchel passed away at the age of 24. And many put him up there with the greatest of all time. Now, I wouldn't, maybe in the top 50 list, and maybe somewhere near the end of the middleweights, I could throw him up there. And it would have been nice to see him have a full career and see what he have done and fared against other top middleweights, light heavyweights of his day. But, Stanley Ketchel definitely did work in the 7 years as a pro. What's this dude record? Let's see.
Hit me, you sucker.
59, 60 bouts within 7 years. All right, and he's basically a kid. He passed away at 24. He started at 15, 16 years old. He's basically a kid doing this. Now, the dude that he whooped down this day in boxing history, the what's this dude name? Kid Tracy. And I suppose that's a nickname. Now, I don't even know if this dude even existed. I can't find anything on this joker. Catcher was a teen when he fought this dude, so I propose that Kid Tracy was probably a teen or adolescent young boy. Probably some local teen who hung around the bars and the spots, a local hobo, homeless kid, and they probably gave him a beer or a piece of gold or a pipe to smoke on or something just to fight. I really don't know. I really can't say because there's nothing on him. Because if you look at Kid Tracy's record, he only has 2 fights, and he lost to 2 legendary fighters, Stanley Ketchel and what's the Mexican dude? Arreola Herrera, if I remember correctly. Arreola or like Chris Arreola Herrera, 2 legendary fighters. And since we don't have any info on Kid Tracy, we'll just talk a tad bit about Herrera. Now, Herrera had a record of 66 wins, 12 losses, and 14 draws with 5 newspaper decisions. Which, again, newspaper decisions does not mean you won. All it means is the newspaper decided your bout, or lied about your bout, or wrote something different about your bout. So out of those 5 newspaper decisions, 3 could have been wins, 2 could have been losses, 1 could be a win, 4 could be no decisions, and so on. And out of those 66 wins, by the way, by Herrera, 59 of them were by KO. So, he had that dynamite in his hands. And on his resume, he fought greats such as Young Corbett, Abe Attell, Kid Goodman, Battling Nelson, Terry McGovern, and the list goes on.
Hey, you out, sucker.
Now, since Kid Tracy lost to both of these dudes, 2 legends, you would think they would have some more info on him. Kid Tracy was a featherweight at the time that he fought both those cats. A featherweight bum, of course, or street kid, or actual young kid from Montana, because they both fought him in Montana. And he got knocked out by 2 legends. So if you're going to lose, at least lose to the best. There's no other info I could find on him. The Joker didn't even have a birth date when I looked him up. So, all right. Next, in this day in boxing history, 1925, May 2nd, Pancho Villa defeats Clever Cincio in Manila, Philippines, and he retains the world flyweight title. Pancho Villa, aka the Filipino Whirlwind, was 89, 8, and 4 with 2 no contests. And out of those 89 wins, he had 22 KOs. He fought at flyweight most of his career, but he fought everywhere from 100 pounds to 115 pounds. These are one of the greats that you would hope that Manny Pacquiao and other great Filipino fighters would have studied, since he was putting in work way back in the early 1900s.
Hit me, you sucker.
But as we know, a lot of these old school dudes, they fight above, below, way above their weights, and we got to credit them and show respect for that. And that's a side note. Let me make a side note. It's sort of like grappling with this whole weight thing, because I used to grapple on the world level, and I'm sure it's like other physical arts. The catch weight thing. Catch weights back in the old days was more like an agreed upon weight. It was agreed upon at the site, at the fight. It wasn't in contract. Nobody was really bent out of shape if you came in over or under. Catch weights of old usually weren't scheduled or contracted out. The fighters had enough honor and discipline for the most part to make their weight. So let's put it like this. If you were a bad man majama at middleweight and you go to a town and their best fighter there is a lightweight, it's just general consensus like, hey man, we got to fight. I'm the best fighter here. Granted, I'm middleweight. You're the best fighter, there. Granted, you a lightweight. We met up in whatever town, so let's fight. And usually both dudes is like, all right, let's get it on, man. Let's just duke it out. You know what I'm saying? Another example. Let's say y'all are fighting at middleweight again, and y'all get there in the morning, you weigh in before y'all bout that you're going to have in the afternoon or the evening, and your opponent weighs 158 and you weigh in at 154. And both managers and both boxers, they probably wouldn't pay it no mind. But let's say they talk it over, and then they say, "Oh, we don't mind." And most times, 9 times out of 10, no one minds, and the fight ensues, right? And no one is going to say anything about it. We go have a fight because people came. It's an attraction. Everybody going to get paid, and plus y'all both made the middleweight limit of 160. Both y'all's under the limit. And let's say, for example, both of y'all weighed over the middleweight 160 limit, or both y'all weighed under. Like we just said, the fight would still go on. Now, what if someone was overweight? The fight still went on. And this used to happen a lot in freestyle wrestling. And I can imagine, again, in other combative exhibitions with other combative sports that had weight classes. For instance, I remember going to tournaments and there would be only 2 or 3 other opponents there at the weight class. And they usually, for some reason, they didn't make weight. They were either too heavy or too light to compete at another weight class, even though they always had the option to go up and battle at a higher weight class, but most of them didn't. All right. Now, back to the story. Now, if 3 dudes showed up to compete at a certain weight, and if the dude that made the weight, let's say he made his weight of 140, he didn't mind that the other guys were overweight, then the round robin would ensue. And if he did mind, he would be declared the winner without getting no work in, without wrestling, without grappling, without fighting, and the other 2 dudes would still have to do their round robin. But if you about your business and you did all that hard work, all that training to compete, you're not about to make weight and then not compete. You know what I'm saying? Somebody got to get it. Y'all know what I'm saying? So let me see if I can reiterate. So if you come in at the schedule 160, but the other 2 combatants, let's say they come in at 163 and 165, then the fights, let's get it on. We came here to battle and put in work. Today, jokers put it in their contract, charge fines, charge fees, refuse to weigh in if they overweight, or to weigh in after the fight. And I remember, like, grappling tournaments, everybody weighed out. You had to weigh out before leaving. All right? You had to weigh out before leaving, except on championship day. So it was a 3-day tournament. On championship day, you didn't have to weigh out. So yeah, same day weigh-ins, like Blood and everybody else been saying, that needs to come back. That will help boxing out a lot right now. Now back to the Filipino whirlwind, Pancho Villa. His birth name was Francisco Guilledo, Guilledo, and he was born in 1901. And again, wow, these dudes pass away young. And he passed at the age of 24. He passed in 1925. Now, Francisco Guilledo, we know as Pancho Villa. He stood at 5 feet 1 inch, and he never weighed more than 115 pounds. And of course, him being an Asian, he went through not as much as black folks, but he went through a lot of discrimination, especially when he came to the West Coast in California, when it came to fighting and people taking him on. I can't remember if it was Jimmy Wilde. Somebody didn't want to fight him, but he eventually got that fight. So even some of the Asian cats got the color line drew on them too. Now, Pancho Villa was a Asian on world flyweight. He was the Asian champion, and he eventually won the world championship at flyweight in 1923. All right, and he's critically acclaimed as one of the greatest, not only Filipino but Asian boxers in history. And here's an interesting fact about Pancho Villa. He's one of the many great boxers to have never been KO'd in their entire boxing career. He had over 100 bouts and he was never KO'd. I think Charlie Burley is another one, and there's a whole host of them. Not a lot, but there's a handful of them that's never been KO'd. I'm talking about great boxers now. See, even the greats get KO'd sometimes, or TKO'd, or referee technical decision, all that good stuff.
Back to the gym, son.
Now, on the boat ride to America in 1922, Pancho Villa first got an invitation, and famous promoter Tex Rickard, invited him. Was like, man, you got the juice, and we want to see, people was about making big fights. I mean, they still are, Don King and everybody. Yeah, I even shout out to De La Hoya, but it was just understood back then. It was mandatory almost back then. It was, everybody knew it. If you was the man over in Fiji, and you got so big that your name started to be world renowned, they was going to find you. They was going to seek your ass out and be like, hey, we heard you got the juice, man, so come fight this champion we got over here in Britain. And then you whooped him down. Come fight a champ. We got over here in Puerto Rico. We going to get a world champ, undisputed champ, and that's what I love about the older boxing days. But on the boat here with Tex Rickard, and I can't remember the other dude's name. I think it was Churchill, some dude named Churchill, but they nicknamed him Pancho Villa on that boat ride over here to give him a stage name, a cool moniker that could attract crowds. All right. Now he came over and fought the American flyweight champ Johnny Buff in September 15, 1922, and Villa knocked his behind out, and it was a big upset. He knocked him out in the 11th round. Everybody was upset, but everybody was like, okay, that's that dude.
Hit me, you son.
Now check out the politics of boxing, y'all. Jimmy Wilde came out of retirement, and he said, you know what, I want to fight Gennaro. He was a real good flyweight, American flyweight at that time. Probably Italian American by the name. Jimmy Wilde's another legendary great Welsh-born boxer. But he's like, man, I'm going to come out of retirement and I'm going to fight the best. Now, Villa just whooped down the dude who was the crown champ for America, Johnny Buff. But Gennaro was also kind of, like up there with Buff. But Jimmy Wilde came out of retirement and said, I don't want to fight Villa. I want to fight Gennaro. But then, of course, he was finally swayed. And then he knew his name in the streets. People were probably saying, look, man, this Filipino dude just whooped down Buff. And he came all the way from Philippines. And he here now. And you talking about you going to fight Gennaro. How is it going to look when you obviously, if he beat the American champ, you saying Gennaro the champ. But we say, y'all get what I'm saying. So anyway, Jimmy Wilde finally got in the ring with Pancho Villa. And the rest is history. They got in the ring. It was a big fight. Matter of fact, I'm gonna put the link to that fight or to some rounds of the fight in the description or whatever, so y'all can see what I'm talking about with the old school boxing. It wasn't wild. Them jokers was in there. They was calculated through precise punches. But I'm gonna put the link in there so y'all can see it. Anywho, Pancho Villa went on to knock Jimmy Wilde out, and after that fight, Jimmy Wilde retired. The late great Jimmy Wilde retired. And it was a big thing in history. And this fight took place in 1923. And it just blows my mind how they swear up and down they've lost or they haven't recorded a lot of Sugar Ray Robinson's fights. Y'all talk about marvelous things in the ring. Eyewitness accounts, books by Sugar Ray Robinson. They say he was doing the most unbelievable things in the ring. Shit like you see in the cartoons. Hell, there's even a few on YouTube of his younger fights because they claim they don't have many. Granted, he fought throughout the 40s and through 60s. Well, I even saw my own eyes. I mean, my great uncle Chuck used to tell me about it. And he used to have an old VHS that we used to watch. But as a chap, I didn't understand. I didn't know what I was watching. But the one on YouTube, there's one where he jumps up in the air and lands on one foot with the back foot stretched out and reaches forward with the punch. And he's connecting, and his foot movements are real wild and eccentric. Anyway, he was doing all type of other crazy stuff. Windmill punches, 15-punch combos, haymakers. And I was watching, I can't remember if it was a documentary or if it was a book where Muhammad Ali was saying that he got a lot of his fancy footwork and shuffling from Sugar Ray Robinson. And y'all might not know that Ali begged Sugar Ray Robinson to be his coach, teacher, and trainer to train him up to be a great boxer. Sugar Ray Robinson came with him to a few fights, but he didn't really like boxing like that. He wanted to be an entertainer, and he thought boxing was brutal. So of course, we know the rest is history. Ali got with Dundee. Now Pancho Villa went home in 1924 after he whooped down Jimmy Wilde, and he had a big reception at the Malacañang Palace in Manila, Philippines. They had parade for him, all that good stuff. And in Manila, on this day in boxing history, May 2nd, that's where he beat Clever Cincio. And when this fight right here is one of his last two fights. Then when he returned back to America in 1925, shortly after his last fight, which was against Jimmy McLarnin, he passed away. Something like he had a tooth ulcer, then it became infected, and instead of going to the doctor, he partied with his homies over there in the West Coast, and he passed away, untimely. A young champion, a young prodigy. He passed away at a young age like Stanley Catchell in his early 20s. Shit crazy, man. Great fighters passing away. I don't know if it's for the better or for the worse. Maybe they live wild lives, but yeah, big ups to Pancho Villa. Rest in peace.
Sucker, you ain't nothing.
And he was survived by his wife and his younger brother, Little Pancho. Little Pancho also was a professional boxer with a record of 44 wins, 13 losses, 17 draws. He was survived by his wife, his younger brother, and they don't talk about his other family. Here's another interesting fact about Pancho Villa. He won over 50 bouts in only a 2-year time span before he came over to America. So over in the Philippines, he did work, and that's how you get recognized on the world level. Won over 50 bouts in 2 years, y'all. These jokers fighting once and twice a year. Imagine you fight 25 bouts, in 1 year. But upon Pancho Villa's death, he had just lost to Jimmy McClellan, and upon his death, the flyweight world title. Now, that fight wasn't a world title fight, and he fought with that infection in his mouth. They said he held his glove up the whole time to try to mask or protect his to hold his pain in. Anywho, it wasn't a title fight. He lost. The title became vacant, and they gave it to that dude Frankie Gennaro, who Jimmy Wilde was trying to fight. All right, now on to Clever Cincio. Clever Cincio, he's a fellow Filipino. Short career. His record stands as 9 wins, 3 losses, 2 draws, and 2 KOs. And he had 4 newspaper decisions. Now, he has 34 other bouts that aren't accounted for. They're unaccounted for. But either way, maybe he was a boxer using the same name. Maybe he was trying to use a different name to revamp his identity, because the boxer that has 34 bouts, his name was Young Cincio, and you find that a lot in history. When you go back and look, you'll see, let's say, Jack Johnson, then you'll see Young Jack Johnson, and you don't know if it's a pseudonym, if it's they trying to move to another country, like the Alabama Kid did when he moved to Australia, change his name up a little bit, and you just never know. But yeah, Clever Cincio, 9-3-2. He really won. I guess he wouldn't win about that life. Maybe those other 34 bouts was him. Maybe they weren't. But this day in boxing history, May 2nd, y'all got a part of me. I'm feeling extra saucy right now. But I'm excited for the fight tonight. But this day in boxing history, May 2nd, 1954, Jimmy Carruthers defeats Chamran Songkipgrot, a Taiwanese brother. But Jimmy Carruthers retains the world bantamweight title. And look at that. Looks like they're wearing socks in the ring, huh? Now, about James, a.k.a. Jimmy William Carruthers, he was born in 1929, passed away in 1990. Wow, he had a long life. He was an Australian boxer, and he was the world bantamweight champion. He also, Jimmy C, we're just going to call him Jimmy C. Jimmy C competed for Australia in the 1948 Summer Olympics in London. He made it to the quarters, but then he forfeited out due to, I can't remember what injury. It was an eye injury. He forfeited out. But Carruthers won the Australian bantamweight title, in 1951, and then the British Commonwealth title in 1952. And he was regarded by the NBA as the world bantamweight champion. He is regarded now. We ain't saying he beat the baddest Bammies in the land yet, but he is regarded as the champion. Now, Jimmy C, James Jimmy Carruthers was Australia's first universally recognized boxing world champion. And that's amazing. I thought it would be more before him, because that was in 1951, 52. But there's other great Australians of the past, such as that came from the country of boxing, such as Young Griffo, Mick King, Les Darcy, and they all had won world titles, but none of them received the international acceptance of winning their title like Jimmy C did. And Jimmy C fought in New Zealand. He beat a champion from New Zealand, Lynn Philp. He fought other cats such as Pappy Galt, Bobby Sin, and in this day in boxing history, he fought the Taiwanese brother, Chamron Songkit-rat. All right, he retired, and I think it's 62. It says here. Anyway, he retired with 21 wins, 4 losses, and 13 KOs. All right, now there's not much info on Chamron Songkit-rat, but his official record stands as 8 wins, 5 losses, and 1 draw, and he only has 2 KOs. But interesting enough, he must have been that dude, had some juice, or an awesome promoter. And now that I think about it, he must have just been one of the few contenders at bantamweight, in the bantamweight division during that time, because in the short 14 recorded official bouts that he has, he got 3 or 4 bantamweight title shots. You know what I'm saying? And before that, he acquired the OPBF title, which is still around today, by the way. It's an Asian alphabet belt, basically. OPBF stands for Oriental Pacific Boxing Federation. This is one of the alphabet belts around the world, but Songkit-rat did have that, but he got 3-fold bantamweight world title shots with only 14 bouts. So wow. Now here's a side note about that fight, about that picture we see, and after reading it, of course, I see why it looks like they're wearing socks, because they're not wearing socks. I'm gonna tell you what they're wearing. Now here's a side note about this bout that they had just day in boxing history. Prior to the bout, there had been a really serious storm, and sadly for the fighters, the storm had left the ring more like an ice rink, and the boxers were advised not to wear their boxing boots or shoes because of the slipperiness of the ice on the canvas. And instead of calling the bout off, Ring Magazine founder Nate Fleischer, who had been invited there by the ruler, General Pichai, suggested that the bout be fought barefooted. So these jokers is in there barefooted. And dig this, the fighters not only had to fight barefooted, but the weather was so bad that during their, this ain't funny, but during their fight, the light bulbs were like somebody with bad luck. You know, people just got bad luck. Everywhere they go, they tearing shit up on accident. Bad stuff happens to them. But anyway, while they're in the ring, the light bulbs exploded on some Final Destination type stuff, and the glass shards fell on them in the ring too. Anyway, despite the conditions, Jimmy C won, and he retained his title. And he retired for 7 years, came back like a lot of fighters do, have 5 more bouts, and he only won 1 of them. Now for Songkit-rat, he retired after this fight as well. Isn't that crazy? I guess it was a Final Destination. But he came back, and he lost 3 of his 5 next bouts. Alright? But last but definitely not least, this day in boxing history, this is the reason why I had to rush and make this video. May 2nd, 2009, and this is tying in with the May 1st one. Alright? I'm tying all this up. The whole May thing, May Day, May 1st, May 2nd, all of May. May 2nd, 2009, Manny Pacquiao KOs Ricky Hatton in Las Vegas and wins the world super lightweight title. Again, like we said at the end of the May 1st, this day in boxing history, special and certain dates, y'all. Alignments, measurements. Now, is it luck? Is it well planned and thought out? Or is it mere coincidence? Now I think that Mayweather has more to do with the planning of the date. But does he know that, or did he calculate that Pac-Man damn near flatlined Ricky Hatton on this same day back in 09? You know? But, you know, Money May is also very, very successful during early May. He won on all the early May dates except for May 2nd. Pacquiao has only won on May 2nd for early May dates. So, I mean, will Pacquiao add Mayweather to the brutal KO list for May 2nd? Or will Mayweather add Pacquiao to just another name on his illustrious career as taking over Cinco de Mayo, taking over the box office, taking over the venue and the tickets and all that other good stuff. Woo! Y'all, I'm tired. I'm sloshed up. May the best man win tonight. I can't wait. I'm going to wash my behind, get ready. I love boxing. This day in boxing history, y'all. Is it all luck? Has it been calculated? What's going to go down? I can't wait to see. I got my brews ready. I got my booze ready. All right, y'all. I'm out. We love boxing.